I get your attention, please?
Hello, hello.
Hello,
Well,
hello.
I am Marlon Weems, the publisher of the Journeyman newsletter on Substack, and this is the Journeyman Unfiltered, which is part of I guess, an ongoing series that I have been doing. Started on Substack, but now we are actually streaming across platforms on Facebook as well as YouTube. And what I try to do is connect with, writers, thinkers, people that I respect. And there is no one better than Miss Danielle Moodie. Hello, Danielle.
Hello, hello.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so
Well,
excited.
it's my pleasure. And, unfortunately, we just don't have anything to talk about, though. There's just not much going on. So
Nope.
perhaps we should have waited, until some things started happening. Of course, I'm kidding, but I haven't looked at my phone in the last 30 minutes, but the last thing I saw was, I don't know, something, or I think Trump is canceling climate change now.
Oh,
We're not
okay.
going to have that anymore. I wish
Got
he
it.
had done it like 2 weeks ago before I got this foot of snow over here. So, oh, so I thought that I would just, as usual, keep this, kind of on the fly a little bit.
Yeah.
But the first thing I want to talk about, and I guess it kind of leads to a bigger conversation, is what happened last night in New Jersey. So Tom Malinowski, who was actually a member of Congress, and he was running for Mikey Sherrill's, her seat, which was vacated when she became governor. And he, even though they haven't officially called it last time I checked, he conceded. And the reason I thought this was so interesting is that he conceded to a just straight up progressive. And I mean, well, and I am having some difficulty with her name. I believe it's Analilia, but I'm not sure. Meha. I'm really going to have to brush up on my Spanish.
Yeah.
But essentially, and if the part I highlighted, she's the most progressive of all 11 candidates. And to me, it looks a whole lot like what just happened in New York.
Right.
Because Tom Malinowski, I remember him mostly from the time during Trump's first term, because I believe he's a Ukrainian, or his parents were Ukrainian immigrants. And so this is a race he probably should have won, just going by conventional wisdom. So, your thoughts on this?
Yeah. So, Marlon, I think that what we're seeing both here in New York, what we've seen in, around the country with these special elections, is that it is the candidate that is willing to stand 10 toes down on their values, on their truth, which means, for Ms. Meha here, standing up for Gaza and saying that what we are witnessing, what we are seeing on our devices, what's being streamed in is a genocide. These are issues that, mainstream corporatized Democrats have wanted to keep at arm's length, have chosen not to stand up for because they take AIPAC money and are beholden to their donors as opposed to their constituents. And I think that what we're seeing in these rise of progressive candidates is that the American people in these districts, in these states, are saying, I want a leader that has values, that isn't going to move with the wind, that is actually going to say the quiet parts out loud. And I think that this is, again, why you have the gerrymandering that Donald Trump
Hmm.
has been orchestrating around the country. This is why his administration is raiding election offices and trying to get voter rolls, because all signs are showing that he is wildly unpopular, that Republicans are wildly unpopular. He has given them nothing to run on, right? There is no win, Marlon, that they can say, well, at least X, the economy is good. At least, ooh, crime is down. At least, et cetera, et cetera. There is nothing. He's underwater on everything. And so I think that out of a Democratic Party, what people are looking for is authenticity and
Hmm.
integrity, which is what these progressives are showing themselves to have in spades.
That's really interesting because to me, what is really, and for Trump, this is really, I think it shows how weak he is.
Yes.
He's not even leading on like the things that are supposed to be his go-to, immigration,
Hmm.
all of these things. Um, he's just totally underwater, and he's certainly not. It's one of those things, Danielle, where I think people, even the folks we really, really just can kind of give up on, people still basically have a conscience and they know what's right and wrong. And when you see
Hmm.
people getting killed out in the middle of the street in broad daylight, I I just don't care. And especially white folks, which is
Hmm.
something, correct me if I'm wrong, I just can't remember seeing that. I mean,
Hmm.
basically, in my view, what's happening is they're starting to treat white folks like they've been treating us,
That part.
right? And
Yep.
so this is a development I just don't think white folks saw coming. And so now it's like, oh shit,
Yep.
oh crap. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's just unheard
It's
of, really.
and this is the thing where I want people to kind of check their conscience, right? Which is that Black people in this country have experienced the militarization of police our entire lives. We have been in communities that have been oppressed and suppressed and beaten back literally and figuratively by state violence and government. And so it was fine, right, for many a white folk to see that happen and say, well, they're criminals. They're the bad ones. They're the ones that need to be checked, right? So when they see the tanks rolling through our communities, when they see these things happening, they justify it. But now you have a white mother that was shot dead, right? Stuffed animals in her glove compartment, Renee Nicole Good. You have Alex Preddy, right? Executed on the street 10 times. They unloaded their guns into this man, a registered nurse at a veterans hospital, right? Working to help our wounded warriors, right? This is, and so to see that and to try and then to listen to a narrative that sounds eerily familiar to you because you've heard it before, but you just haven't heard it spoken about people who look like you. And now it's Renee Nicole Good was a domestic terrorist. Oh, Alex Preddy. Oh, he had a gun. Well, I thought it was legal. I thought that it was legal to have a gun. It was okay when Kyle Rittenhouse had one, right? And
There
they
you
put
go.
him on the stage at the Republican National Convention. It was okay when the McCluskeys had guns, waving them on their front lawns. He ran for Congress. But all of a sudden, Alex Preddy, because he's a white man, but on the right side of history, he gets executed. And so now that there is, I think, this shockwave, this fear that, wait a minute, they can treat us like this, right? And I say that what you've given a permission structure to will always come back to you. And I think that that is what the civil rights movement was about, is saying we're not just talking about Black liberation, we're talking about the ability for all to live free, right? For
Exactly.
all to live free under this constitution. And so if this can happen to one group, and you are okay with it, understand that eventually it will come for you. And that's what I think that we are seeing right now.
There's a historical basis in this, and I've mentioned it several times before. This goes all the way back, and I just point 20 miles down the road, maybe a little bit more, to Wilmington, North Carolina, 1898. I mean, if you described it and didn't give the time frame that it happened,
Hmm.
this is like the scene of the only successful coup so far in American history. There have been attempted ones, as we well know, but the thing that is striking is that the violence was not just directed at Black people. It
Hmm.
was also directed at the poor white farmers that had aligned with them and basically had taken over North Carolina.
Hmm.
The Fusion Party, you had at that time Black Republicans, and you also had, so at the end of the day, they took over pretty much every segment of governance in Wilmington and the governor of the state. And you just see, and to me, this is the first time I think in the modern era where we've seen white folks get targeted in this way. And to their credit in Minneapolis, and I've spent time there, the people in Minneapolis are really some of the coolest folks, but at the same time, and I think this is what ICE is finding out and what MAG is finding out, folks on the left got guns too. And folks, they're not the only folks walking around here with, all this weaponry. So it just seems to me that this is almost a repetition of what has happened in the past with white allies. But
Hmm.
to their credit, folks in Minnesota ain't backing down.
No.
They're
And
not
I
backing
really
down at all.
and I think that it is important for us, for folks who are not in Minnesota, to not get distracted by the fact that Minnesota is an occupied state in this country right now, right? There are thousands upon thousands of armed slave patrollers unleashed in that state. And while this administration, this regime will throw different balls at you and the media will drop one so that they can go and run after another one, we have to understand that Minnesota is a test case. It is a test
Mhm.
case for this regime to see what they can nationalize, to see what they can get away with, right? How far they can go. Right now, there are kids that are not going to school. There are people that are not going into work for fear of getting caught up in one of these pop up, right? Security checks, right? That just pop up. I can tell you, as somebody who went to the West Bank, right? I have seen what these pop-up securities do, right? And so understand that what we're up against is something that is so dangerous and so powerful. And it is not something that can be ignored because currently, today, it's not outside your front door, but you have no idea if it will be tomorrow or next week, right? And folks need to be prepared for that.
That is closer than we may think. This popped up on my in my email 30 minutes ago. This is from Wired magazine. And the guys at the folks at Wired are very similar in a sense to ProPublica in terms of how they break news. And if you look at this story, it's really interesting. And it's to your point, I think. Um, and I'll just read it for folks that are listening.
Mhm.
And this is from Wired. Federal records obtained by Wired show that over the past several months, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which is ICE, and the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, have carried out a secret campaign to expand ICE's physical presence across the United States. Documents show that more than 150 leases and office expansions have or would place new facilities in nearly every state, many of them in or just outside the country's largest metropolitan areas. In many cases, these facilities which are used by street level agents and ICE attorneys, are located near elementary schools, medical offices, and places of worship. What I thought was really chilling is the next paragraph,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll just skip ahead. It says, in Irvine, California, ICE is moving into offices located next to a child care agency. In New York, ICE is moving into offices on Long Island near a passport center. So what you just said, it's already happening. We just haven't
Yeah.
seen it yet. I mean, and this was 2 or 3 years ago. I'm on an island that is, it's not a place you're going to find a whole lot of. You would have found a lot of undocumented people here 2 or 3 years ago with all
Mm-hmm.
the construction that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, almost no one. And you could tell that these were probably undocumented immigrants. They would actually just right across the street from me. They would lease, one of these beach houses,
Mm-hmm.
and you could tell kids were there, wife was there, and it might be, 10 guys. They take off in the morning. You'd see them on rooftops doing their work. Mom and the kids are at home cooking and, doing whatever. You do not see that now. At the same time, Wilmington, different
Mm-hmm.
story. So I'm just waiting for Wilmington, Raleigh. These are relatively, for North Carolina,
Right.
relatively diverse. A lot of Asian Indians there,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of Latinos in that, especially in Raleigh. So it's there. To me, what they are doing is setting this up to do a Wilmington massacre 1819 style, where every vote is going to be contested. They're going to be trying to, it would not surprise me for them try and grab voting machines and make up, fake stuff.
Yep. Yep.
But at the very least, there's going to be a presence that is going to discourage a lot of folks, from even people who are legal to vote. They just don't want the hassle, and they'll just stay at home.
So remember, it was, what was it, Marlon, last week when
Mhm.
Steve Bannon on his radio show said that ICE was absolutely going to have a presence at the at polls, right? Carolyn Levitt, press secretary, was then asked by reporters. Steve Bannon said that ICE is going to have a presence at polling stations. And she said, well, I can't confirm or deny. It is possible that that happens. They sent ICE agents right now, are in Milan, right, for the Winter Olympics, right? Why is ICE at the Winter Olympics? To present to the world that, oh, they're security, right? Like they're just security enforcement, to kind of normalize the brutality that we have been seeing. And so there's going to be nothing that stops DHS from rolling out ICE agents in full military clad that pull Black, brown people out of lines. Show me your papers. Why are you here? Are you registered? Are you illegal? Or just scoop them up, hold folks for days, weeks, and guess what? And then and then you miss the election. Oops. And we drop you off in the middle of a wooded area and say, oh, you're released. No charges brought.
What they seem to be doing, the strategy is, when they grab somebody, they are moving as quickly as possible to get them out of whatever state or locale they happen to be in. So by the time the court can even try to address what has happened, oh well, I saw a headline this morning about a I don't think it was a US citizen. I think it was someone who was legal to be here.
Mm-hmm.
They've been in detention 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
So showing your papers isn't even enough.
No. And who are you showing them to? Right? Who are you showing
I
them
don't
to?
know. They don't show
Because
you any identification. So
you know that you're not allowed a phone call. There are no lawyers that are going into any of these detention centers. The only people that are going in to these centers are ICE agents. That's it. And those that are being detained. So you don't even know if you have a family member, a friend, a colleague that was picked up and you haven't heard from them 2, 3, 4, 5 days, and you're calling everyone and everywhere, they're not even doing us the service of logging folks in. And all of that is on purpose. They're being moved from facility to facility to facility so that you can't track them. Like turning people, human beings, into packages, Marlon.
Well, you
Right?
know what, I think it was the CEO of Geo Group said, we got to start thinking about this like Amazon for humans.
I mean,
These guys, and this was on, I think this was on an earnings call. You know,
wow.
it's actually worse than I thought. I mean, right after the election, I wrote a piece because, you know me, well, you can see the background. I look at the stock market a lot. So I noticed when when Trump said, this is going to be my guy,
Mm-hmm.
Geo Group, 2 or 3 other private prison stocks,
Through
just
the roof.
straight up. So at the time, I noticed it, and my thought was that and this still may be the ultimate sort of plan, but it just looks to me like they're not rushing to get these people out of the country nearly as much as they're rushing to get them incarcerated in the
Correct.
system, because they can then lend these people out to work,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
It
And
is
I
slavery.
know it's not getting reported on, but I just cannot imagine that isn't happening.
It is slavery, right? We don't want these people here working on their own, right? On their own sovereignty, building their lives, building families, blah blah blah. No. We want them incarcerated, tortured, and forced to work because of what I saw, several reports that they make $1 a day. It costs $5 to make a phone call. They're making people pay for clean water to
Mm.
drink, right? There are no bathroom facilities. People are laying in their own feces, right? Reports today out of ProPublica are talking about a 2-month-old that is incarcerated at this a 2-month-old that is incarcerated at the same facility as Liam Ramos was, the 5-year-old that was in detention. This is modern day slavery. This is human trafficking. And the stocks that are climbing are the ones that make money off of brutality.
Mm. There's just really not much you can say, is there? I mean,
No.
what really, I worked on Wall Street for a long time. And when people think of people who do what I used to do, the sort of the general thought is, oh, these guys are, crooks, and they, a lot of negative stuff. But I have to tell you, I am proud of that job. I don't know how a person who works for ICE could, like, I don't know how they sleep.
Mm,
I don't know how they, like, tell their kids this is what daddy's doing. Unless unless they're raising their kids to be, racist, whatever. You know what I'm saying? I think about it a lot. I see these guys and they're walking around and they're, like they're in Fallujah or Iraq or somewhere, right?
mhm.
And they're going to the house of some lady that's,
Yeah.
I saw this one, I don't know where it was. And this woman had on scrubs, like she was a nurse or worked at a hospital or something like that. And the guys were standing outside her door. I wouldn't have let them in. It looked like the military had showed up at this woman's house. They didn't have a warrant. They didn't have anything. They said they had something, but they never did really show it. It was always, well, he's getting it, that kind of thing. Let us on in. And I'm just like, who are these guys they are finding that are this bereft of just
Yep.
basic empathy and just conscious? I just, hey, look, I'm not saying I'm an angel. I made as much money as they legally allowed in New York, but I'm just saying I wasn't stealing from anybody, or, you know, I, it just messes with me. And it's something that I've really wrestled with over the years. I've been away from finance for now well over a decade.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Maybe there's some stuff I would have done differently. I think we all would, right? But at that time, I was kind of, a little bit of a trailblazer. It wasn't a thing that we really got to do, and all that stuff. But so I just can't imagine, and I think the same thing. I know I'm rambling a little bit, but I see guys like Trump just stealing.
Yeah.
You can't tell me all these market swings. We haven't seen anything like this
Yep.
before. I know Howard Lutnick well enough to know he knows better, right? And I'm just looking at this, and I guess the part that really gets me is it just feels like there's not a damn thing we can do about it. None of
I
it.
mean, I honestly think, Marlon, and I say I say it on the Danielle Moodie show. I say it on at any time that anybody has me on air, is that the only thing that is going to stop this regime is a concerted national strike. The country has got to be shut down, right?
Mhm.
This cannot stand. It is not, um, it cannot stand. And so until a critical mass of Americans decide that the marching isn't enough, the protests on collective days isn't enough, that this has to be a sustained long-term effort. What does it look like to care for those that can't miss a paycheck, right? That like,
Mhm.
but we have got to recognize we're not voting our way out of this. And the only way to fight is through our economic engine. We are the economic engine of this country. We are what makes these people millionaires, billionaires, and trillionaires, right? So until we decide collectively, until we see exactly what they've been doing in Minnesota. I want to see the national labor unions, the national civil rights organizations, LGBTQ organization, immigration organizations, like every single union, all of these link arms and say, we're starting a national strike, right? On this day, we're going with it because it's the only way. Right? Get what you
Oh yeah.
can, take care of who you can, create your, much like we did during COVID, your community pods of shared resources, food, all of those things. But we have to shut the country down.
That is such a good point. And I'll even go one better. And I'm not this, not my bright idea. Actually, Scott Galloway, who is he's a rich white guy. Folks listen to him. I don't always agree with him. You'll see him on Morning Joe, and his background, he sold, I think he had a hedge fund that he sold for a lot of money. What makes him a little bit unique is that he talks about his money. He doesn't try to act like, he's just like us. But he said it's not just a national strike. It's got to be an economic strike. Think about Target. You
Mhm.
know, think about. I mean, it's one thing to boycott, but when your customer base boycotts you
Mhm.
and that money stops flowing, it took a minute, but Target, Target recognized. And so look at what happened with Jimmy Kimmel.
Mhm.
When folks start canceling them Hulu subscriptions and Disney Plus or whatever it was, They figured out how to get Jimmy Kimmel back on TV. So
Exactly.
look, the problem or the difficulty is, and this is, my take on the problem with just the whole, this late stage capitalism. We're in a position where everything that we need to operate on a day-to-day basis at some point is controlled by an oligarch, like what we're doing right now.
Yep.
Right? We can't do this. These are things that, in the true definition, should really be utilities.
Yep.
Cell phone, you can't not have a cell phone. I don't care how mad you are at Verizon or AT&T, you got to have a cell phone. And for somebody like me who lives on an island, it is very difficult to quit Amazon. Yeah, I could do it. It's very difficult. I'll tell you, this happened today. I got a piece of mail today. You know what it was? A Christmas card. Somebody sent me. It was in the wrong mailbox. Somebody just moved in this house and went in the mailbox, and oh, that's the people across the street. Yeah. What's so bad about it? This is somebody I know from New York. I actually saw these people over like New Year's. They probably thought I was crazy. This dude ain't gonna say nothing. We sent him a Christmas.
We sent him a Christmas card. He didn't say thank you.
They said nothing. I'm gonna have to write them a note and go, hey, I just got this Christmas card in February. So all that to say, the things that we use and depend on, the way we communicate, I'm on a MacBook Pro. I can't stand Tim Cook right now, but I can't get mad at my money either. So anyway, it's a great idea for a really rich guy to tell us this is what we ought to do. It's not that easy in practice, but I don't think it'll take that much.
Yeah.
I don't think, if you start seeing Minneapolis level protests combined with people canceling some of these streaming channels, even if you just do it for a month, because that is something that these public companies have to discuss in their earnings calls, just like they discuss how they're raping and pillaging with this inflation and these tariffs. Okay. So that's the point you want to make, not necessarily to put ourselves out of business trying to get back at them. But if it is coordinated like a strike, literally, they have to pay attention.
Yes.
Because the interesting thing about all these billionaires is these ain't like the Rockefeller, John Paul. No. These guys are millionaires in stock, or billionaires in stock, in things that it's not just a bunch of, like the McDuck guy. They're not just sitting up with a bunch of gold. Their wealth is not totally, but largely in the form of the stock market.
Right.
And if people start cutting off some of this shit, the stock market will let you know.
And that's what is
what's
needed.
Got to happen. And by the way, Trump does not understand. He does not respond to anything that doesn't have something to do with money and him. So it can be done. I just think Black folk and people of color have been pissed off about all of this for the last 10 years.
Yep.
White people, and there are no absolutes. I'm talking about just writ large. I think they're just now starting to get mad. And why? Because it's coming to their doorstep.
And they're
Marjorie Taylor Greene. She was fine with Trump till her own kids couldn't afford their insurance. And she's a damn millionaire.
Yep. With her insider trading. Who goes into Congress for 6 years?
Not by herself.
Her net worth was $700,000 when she went into Congress. 6 years later, she is worth $25 million.
Come on.
What career you could go into and make that kind of money? in that short
Nothing
period of time.
legal. Nothing
Exactly.
legal, you know? She want to play string a bell, maybe you could pull something together, but no, it is incredible. What's the senator, the woman down in Louisiana? The trad wife. I can't think of her name. I mean, all of these people in the Senate and the House are just sitting there trading on inside information. It is
Yep.
so blatant, but and what lets you know they're all doing it, Democrats too,
Mhm.
is they can't seem to pass nothing to stop it. Can't
No, because
seem to
why
stop
why
nothing.
would why would they decide to police themselves and to take away their
Take
riches?
money out of their own mouth or
Why would
back
they do
pocket.
that?
Yeah.
You know? People have to do like I continue to go back to until the people of this country stand up collectively together, arm in arm, and say, we have had enough of being run by a madman, of being run by fascists. We have had enough of being over policed and beaten and shot at. We have had enough until it is a critical mass. This is going to continue, metastasize, and get even worse.
Several years ago, I wrote something. This actually happened while I was still working in New York. Um, Citibank, which is a bank, but it's also an investment firm, because we don't have Glass-Steagall anymore. So they had this little, they have these pods of research teams, 4 or 5 people that are real, real smart. And one group decided to write a series of reports on how the ultra wealthy could exploit income or wealth inequality.
Mm.
I mean, they acknowledged the existence of inequality and said, well, it's probably going to get worse. So that presents an investment opportunity. This was so um, just kind of off the chain that because when you're on a trading desk, you get sent all these reports. And I will never forget, my little trading desk of 4 or 5 guys, I forget who got it first. And dudes were like, did they did they really mean to even send us this? Because it was so just blatantly, yeah, right.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
what they did, because of the sort of, I mean, when traders are saying, hey, y'all, this is kind of gross, they pulled it back. And for a number of years, you couldn't even find this piece of research. I mean, the internet, eventually stuff shows up. What I thought it was interesting about it, aside from the fact that you had these 4 or 5, you know, millennials that did this piece of, it was a series. It was like maybe 3 reports, I think. And, it gave all the stocks that you should buy and all this kind of stuff. But it all, just like any kind of research, it also had, okay, what could, like, gum up the gears to make it where this strategy wouldn't work. And I'll never forget this. I just thought about this, but they said the number one thing is that Americans still have the right to vote. They said America still operates one person, one vote. And at some point, the have nots, I'm paraphrasing, but this is kind of what they said. The have nots are going to recognize that they have the authority over the people with money. It's exactly what you're talking about. At some point, they basically said, oh, and the key that I thought was really interesting was they said at some point, they're not going to be satisfied with the potential of becoming a billionaire. They're going to realize that shit ain't going to happen,
Yep.
and they're going to start voting. And that could screw this whole thing up.
I mean, I think that what we have to recognize is that the greed level is insatiable. they'll never stop, right? That the power hungriness, insatiable, it'll never stop. And that the only thing to stop it, to stop them, to stop the oligarchs, to stop this machine from running over all of us is us. There is no one coming in on a white horse, Marlon, to save us.
What did Obama say? We're the ones we've been waiting
for. That's it.
Yeah, it's a
That's
fact.
it.
And you know, I just thought, you know, with this Citigroup thing, and this is 20 years ago, maybe, that they had thought about this well enough to reach the conclusion and to recognize the game of having us, training us to tolerate obscene hoarding of money and resources.
Yep.
Just as long as we think, well, shit, maybe I can, you know, I might not be Bezos, but you know what? Maybe I can, something will happen. I'll win a, you know, a scratch off or something.
Yep.
And that'll get me up there on that scale too. So I got to put up with it, because when I get there, you know, I don't want my taxes
you know what
either.
I call that the lottery mindset. It is the lottery mindset. I'm just one scratch off, one ticket, you know, away from this. And if it were me, and I don't think that people recognize everything is a setup. Everything is a setup. You're never going to get there because those people didn't work hard to build their wealth, right? Many of it was inherited, and then you build off of what you inherited. So this idea, I think one of the biggest Ponzi schemes is that hard work will get you X. That's not actually how this country works.
Well, if you think about it, okay, the average CEO now probably, I'm just guessing, makes 300 times more than his average employee. Are you trying to tell me he's working 300 times harder?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now, if you go back to the 60s, it was maybe, I don't know, 10, 20 times, something like that. Taxes, what? We had a progressive tax, you know, situation. I think the top bracket was like 90%. America ain't never had it so good as it did out, you know, post World War II into the 70s. And you know what changed? You can look at a chart and you can see productivity continuing to go up, meaning workers are more, you know, more and more efficient, getting more done. At the same time, CEO pay going up. Everybody else, straight line.
Flat line. Yep.
Yep. Know what happened? Ronald Reagan. It's almost, you can peg it up against his election. And because you know what Reagan did during his, well, Clinton helped when he got rid of Glass-Steagall, because that was what separated banks from what I used to do. You couldn't do both.
Okay.
And Citibank actually broke out of that. And then, I mean, they basically just started breaking the law and dared the government to do anything about it. They merged with, I think it was Travelers Insurance, because insurance companies could do a certain amount of investing. And so they figured out a back door. The guys I used to work for in Arkansas had a different way of getting around the separation. They just bought a bank as a family. So they had a bank, and I worked at their investment firm, and I was like, how can they be owning? Well, nobody said. The two brothers own an investment firm together, and the family was the major shareholder in the biggest bank in Arkansas. So there's always a way to get around stuff, but you know, the bank, I mean, there was still a separation, not like what you see now where you can buy pretty much anything financial all at the same place, which is convenient, but it also doesn't really account for risk. What if something goes wrong? Well, we've already seen what if something goes wrong?
Right.
And all of a sudden everybody's got their hand out. They're socialists.
Yeah.
They're
All of a
not
sudden,
capitalists anymore when shit goes
no,
wrong.
government has to save us. Government has to bail us out. Too big to fail.
I am waiting. I think that, again, I'm sure somebody else is seeing this. AI,
Oh yeah.
these companies. You got the CEO of OpenAI
Mm-hmm.
talking about how much he's going to invest, or all this money that they're committing to, trillions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was, again, on an earnings call, somebody said, well, how you gonna spend a trillion and y'all just making 10 billion a year? What kind of math is that gonna be? No answer. Dude got pissed off. Told the guy, if you want somebody to buy your stock, I can find you somebody. He
Mm.
literally said that. So to me, the trillions and trillions that are, lined up all in the name of AI, it's just looking like some shit I've seen a half dozen times before.
Yep.
And at some point, the only difference, and to me, what's worse, is it's all coming with just the obscene use of resources. Think all the water and the energy.
Mm-hmm.
They've run our electricity bills up.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
And they're sucking all of the water.
yeah,
Right? So you have electricity bills that are through the roof. People are losing their jobs. You have natural resources that they are taking that human beings need to live. Things like water. And it is a recipe for disaster.
it
It is
is.
a recipe for disaster on every single front that we've named today.
I saw one of these panel discussions, and the woman, um, she's written a book, and I want to say her name is, I'm going to get it right because I don't want to mess
Mhm.
it up. But the point is, and she made a really great point, just talking about the utility of AI.
Mhm.
And we're all convinced that, she described it like this. We think of AI as a catch-all, and she
Mhm.
compared it to transportation.
Mhm.
Well, everybody maybe needs a car, which is transportation, but a rocket ship is also transportation.
Mhm.
AI has convinced everybody that everybody needs their own rocket ship. I hadn't thought about it like that, but she's just talking about the resources that are necessary to give everybody that wants it all of these chat bots. Her point was there are other ways to deliver what AI can do, short of giving me unlimited access to all information, and you too, and
Mhm.
everybody we know. I just think, well, I don't know. Maybe I'm not smart enough, but I just think we're witnessing something that is not going to end well, because 40% of the stock market is 7 stocks.
Mm. Mm-mm-mm.
Yeah. 40% of the stock market is basically what they call the Magnificent
And
Seven.
7. Yeah.
Oracle, Google, Apple, um, Nvidia,
Mhm.
Facebook, all these guys. I mean, and just they're borrowing money like you wouldn't believe. All their big deals that they're doing are with each other. Okay, so I'm just saying. I mean, it's probably not going to affect me that much because I don't own any stock. But you just watch and see. Look at what just happened to Bitcoin in the last week.
Yep.
I mean, and at the same time, the stock market breaks 50,000. Y'all, I'm telling you, this shit is not going to last. I am not
No.
playing. You
And
can't
it's
really have all these things going together. Stock market going through the roof, people pissed off, military on the street. tariffs, bailouts. We're not really talking about the bailout he's had to do for farmers again. So I'm not predicting, the end of the world, but something's going to pop.
Yeah, and you just listed at least 7 of them that can.
So time always flies when we get together, Danielle.
I appreciate our conversation so much.
We have to do this more often. So tell people what you're working on and
Yeah.
how they can get a hold of you.
Thank you. And Marlon, thank you so much for having me on. Folks, I am the editor at the Damn Digest on Substack. I host the Danielle Moodie Show Mondays through Thursdays on YouTube and on Substack, as well as co-host Democracy Ish with my co-host Wajahat Ali. So find me on Substack, find me on YouTube, subscribe, and I keep all my content free. Because I believe that critical thinking dies behind a paywall.
Absolutely. Same here. And of course, I guess my home base is the Journeyman, the newsletter that I just looked on this month, 6 years on Substack.
Wow.
I know. So, I mean, that predates all the toys, when it was just a newsletter to send emails to people. But we got a lot of things coming our way, a
Yeah.
lot of things coming our way. So and that's why I try to keep everything I do free as well, because the propaganda and misinformation is always free.
Yep.
So we've got to give folks choices. And as of about a month ago, Arturo Dominguez and I do a show every Thursday. And we couldn't think of a name for the show, Danielle. So it's called A Show with No Name.
I like it.
Very, very creative,
Very
right?
creative.
We're on Thursdays at 6:00 Eastern. And, it's a lot of fun. Arturo is, just very knowledgeable about, just the politics of immigration, what's happening, south of the border. He's really plugged in. And so we just kind of kick it around and talk about, very similar conversations, but, with a little bit of a twist. It's, leans more towards, those kinds of issues. But again, we got to do this more often.
Yes, we do.
Absolutely. So thanks so much for making time. I really
Thank
appreciate it.
you. Thank
All
you.
right.
And see you again soon.
Absolutely. Folks, I will see you on the other side. You can find me on Substack as well as YouTube and Facebook. And it's dangerous out there. So keep your head on a swivel. I'll see you on the other side. Bye-bye.
Bye.